except there's something when that pops up there. So welcome everybody. We are recording this, and we're also going to share some contact information between folks if they want to get in touch with other people. My name is Jennifer Rubenstein. I'm the Executive Director of the Louisville Independent Business Alliance in Louisville, Kentucky. Ordinarily, I'm joined on these calls by Rebecca Melanson in Austin, Texas. Rebecca's partner was in a bicycle accident and is in the hospital. So she says he's going to be good, but it's going to be kind of a long road. So send her your thoughts and good vibes, and she'll hopefully be joining us next month. If you are not familiar with AMIBA, the American Independent Business Alliance, we are getting together through AMIBA. A lot of us are leaders of IBAs, Independent Business Alliances, or other buy local sorts of groups. We are a member-supported organization, and of course, this call is one of those many benefits. So we hope that if you're not a member yet, that you'll consider joining AMIBA and becoming a member. And actually, that's what next month's Local Leaders Roundtable is about, all the benefits of membership, I do believe, pretty sure. I have to look at my notes later. We usually rotate between 3 types of calls on the second Thursday of every month. There's nuts and bolts sessions, which is today, what's going on with AMIBA, that's going to be next month, and then something we call the Hive, which I kind of liken to the cocktail hours after a day of programming at a conference. Today's nuts and bolts, and we're so glad to be talking about hybrid events. These were a format before the pandemic, but they've definitely taken off since then. And they could be a reality for us for definitely the next few months, and maybe, on into the future. And I think a lot of people have learned so much about how to conduct these events, and we want to pick their brains. So we're very excited to have Dominique Churchill from New Age Communications and many other Tawana entities. Honestly, Dominique, I'll let you introduce which entities you want to focus on. And also Randy Blevins of Think Tank Marketing, works in the arts. Both of our speakers today are based in Louisville, Kentucky, and I brought them on myself because I know they're awesome people and wanted to talk to them and share their knowledge about hybrid events, because I've already been picking their brains myself as we get ready to do some different things. So I think to kind of jump into programming, we're not necessarily going to introduce ourselves around the room right now, but as you have questions or talk, you might want to do that. And I'd also love for you to drop, your name and organization into the chat, so Randy and Dominique can also get to know everybody and see what we're all up to. So we are not a very formal group, as most of you know. We have kind of some questions that I've come up with for Dominique and Randy, but I'm sure you'll also have your own questions as well. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and drop those questions into the chat, just so you know what we've got coming up in case one of your burning questions is on the list. There we go. With that, I think I'll get started, and I'll have Dominique and Randy kind of introduce themselves here with this first question too. So let's see. First question: what types of events have you converted to hybrid events? And by hybrid, I do want to be specific, not just online only, but events where there are in-person attendees as well as online attendees. So I think I will throw that to Dominique first, and then we'll get to Randy.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Again, my name is Dominique Churchill, and I work with Tawana Bain of T. Bain & Co. She has a number of businesses under her umbrella, and I've been with her for going on 2 years and have supported her in a lot of her efforts. One of the events that we had to pivot to a hybrid event due to COVID was our Derby Diversity Business Summit, which we have every year leading up to the Kentucky Derby. Is a great networking opportunity, professional development opportunity for diverse business owners, as well as procurement and diversity executives in corporate America to all come together. And unfortunately, of course, last year, Derby was postponed. And then we pivoted to an event in September to being all virtual. But this year we were not going to be defeated. And so we did host our event, and it was hybrid, and it was wonderful. Another event that I've had the pleasure of working on that was a hybrid event, and that was what was called the Black Harvest. It was an event that we had in Louisville, Kentucky, in the month of October of 2020. Of course, people were still not necessarily going outside. And even though it was the first event that we actually launched, it was an event that would have normally been in person, but due to COVID and restrictions, we pivoted to doing it hybrid. And we did that under our nonprofit organization, JEDI, which I worked with Tawana as well on. And so I'm just happy to be here. And that's just a couple examples of the hybrid events that we have had to tackle due to the pandemic.
Great. Hi, my name is Randy Blevins. As Jennifer said, I own a marketing firm here in Louisville. I work closely with Dominique and her organizations with Tawana Bain. I worked on the Derby Diversity Business Summit and attended. So got to see the hybrid event from an attendee's point of view. But we've also, when the pandemic hit, had to learn a lot about different technologies out there to kind of keep the businesses that we're working with kind of moving. So a couple of events that kind of went hybrid for us was, obviously fundraising events for the arts. I work with several arts organizations here in Louisville, including Kentucky Opera, Louisville Orchestra, LGBTQ Choir, Voices of Kentuckiana. I also work with touring Broadway shows. And then I also work with restaurants and retail. So we had for restaurants, we were doing virtual dinners, and then when everything started we were allowed to have people back into the restaurants again, we converted those into hybrid events as well. So people could still, those who were not comfortable to come into the restaurant still could enjoy the dinner at home, and the topic, and the speaker, usually they're alcohol themed bourbon dinners and things like that. So they're able to take those home and enjoy that from their house and still be able to see what's going on at the dinner. So those are a couple of examples of what we've had to do in terms of hybrid events.
Sorry, I needed to admit somebody there. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, you guys, you guys, both areas have been such a great resource for LIBA, and so glad to have you guys involved with us and what you do for the community as well. Take us through maybe a typical setup for a hybrid event. Kind of what are the check boxes you have to click off to make sure that this is going to be a good experience for both virtual and in-person attendees? And maybe we'll start with Randy first for this one, and we'll kind of switch off a little bit. And also I want to add to, of course, audience, feel free to put questions in chat, or if it's especially pertinent right this moment, to pipe up and let us know.
Well, I mean, it's, the in-person, which we've all done, that's kind of standard. You kind of go through the check boxes depending on if it's a fundraiser or a dinner event. Obviously, logistics are kind of handled by the restaurant that I work with, but we're selling tickets, we're making reservations, as we would normally. It's the virtual component that really takes up a lot more of our time, because we have to kind of manage and run that. And Dominique will speak to probably a larger event where they have maybe resources to hire videographers and things like that, where we don't have that kind of budget. So, it's really up to us to figure out that technological, solution. And so I've kind of looked around at what's available. I know LIBA has utilized the platform Hopin, and that's a great tool. That it's a minimal cost, but for a lot of what I do, I don't need all of the features that Hopin allows, because I know they do breakout rooms, and I don't know if anybody else has used this in their organizations, but there's networking, there's expo where businesses can showcase their wares during your events, and I looked at all that. But for the things that I've been doing, especially for like the smaller organizations, YouTube Live was the perfect way to stream this, because you can set it up in advance and you can make the link private, so that only the people that are paid or who are RSVP'd to that event will get that link. Now, you can't prevent them from sharing that with other people, but that's really not neither here nor there. And then I had a setup that I found on my computer, and then I have nice cameras that I can kind of plug in and videotape what's happening during the event. Sound is always an issue also, so it's just finding the right equipment that fits within your budget to connect to the internet and broadcast on YouTube Live. And that way people are still able to have the experience of the speaker who's walking you through the tasting or the dinner or the performance of what's happening, like in the case of arts fundraisers. A lot of things we were able to do pre-recorded also, so I can just load that up into Ecamm Live, and it takes a fair amount of prep work, but once you've kind of got it all set, and it's time for the event, you just kind of go boom, 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 boom down the line. And I found that Ecamm Live, which I think is Mac based only, which is what I use, has really been like the greatest tool for me because it's very user friendly. You're able to put titles on the screen, throw in graphics, pull in video. You can dial people in from all across the country and have them appear on split screen. So if you're having a guest speaker and they don't happen to be in the same city that you're in, it has the capability of doing that. It's native to the program now. It used to be you had to do it through Skype, and I just find it very easy. But it did take us some time to learn it, and we tested and screwed up, and I've obviously with any kind of technology, anything can go wrong. So we always try to prep our online guests, if there are technical issues, here's a place to go to find out what's going on so that we can get that fixed and get back on. And that might be our Facebook page, or we might be sending out an email or something. So I also think that that's kind of important for your online attendees to know that if they're losing the connection, that there's someplace they can go to find out, what's going on with that, if they're going to be able to get back on. I remember like during the early pandemic, and I think Broadway was trying to do like a tribute to Stephen Sondheim, and it was like an hour and a half before they even started the thing after the original time. And there was nowhere to go. Like, is this happening? Like, everybody's like on the Facebook and on Twitter, texting. And so I just feel like that kind of having that key communication, that there's some kind of backup plan. So for me, there's no typical setup for these types of events. It's trying to figure out what exactly, you need to do in order to make that a great experience for your in-person and online attendees. So for us, that was figuring out the technology and the platform.
Thanks, Randy. Yes, I agree. Telling people where to go when they have problems in advance is a good idea whenever technology is involved.
Because something's going to happen.
That's the truth. Dominique, what do you want to add to that?
Well, I definitely agree with Randy that as far as your question, how do you walking through the setup and planning for a hybrid event, it's no different really than any other event that you would plan for. I believe in the 5 Ps. So proper planning prevents poor performance. So it's a lot of planning that goes into it, of course. And maybe a little bit extra than normal events, just because you have to think about the experience from 2 different standpoints. You have to think about the people that are there in person and what that experience will look like. And then you also have to think about the people that are joining you virtually and what that experience will look like. So you really want to think through all the tiny details. And something I saw on social media today, and I don't know who said this, but I want to share it. If you don't care about tiny details, you'll produce bad work, because good work is the culmination of hundreds of tiny details. And most successful people sweat the small stuff. And I would just say that when you're planning a hybrid event, that you really want to think about all those different details and the user experience. So for us, when we're planning DDBS, we start planning in December. and we have committee meetings, and we make sure that we have the right people at the table to help with the planning and to bring the ideas, and that we create the right partnerships so that we can have our events be successful, whether that be whoever's going to help with the technology piece, or even for the whoever's going to be there to help on site. Like, volunteers are still important, and when you think about volunteers, you need volunteers that are going to be on site to help, but you also need some people behind the scenes virtually to help and keep everyone engaged, or be there to assist if there's technical issues. So just like Randy mentioned before, the added thing that we have to think about with DDBS, with it being hybrid, is okay, if someone can't get in to the platform, who's our tech support? How are we going to handle that? So it's some more additional steps or different things that you have to think about. You want to make sure you have a good run of show, and so that you have it timed out exactly how things are going to run, including your breaks and what's going to fill in those breaks. Are we going to have a DJ playing music, or something to keep everyone engaged? Because if you have someone at home watching or at their office watching on the computer, you have to think about, how do we keep them engaged? And then, of course, the people in person, of course, they might want to go to the restroom, or you might have snacks and coffee. But what about those people at home? How do you keep them coming back and staying engaged with the content? That's why it's also important to have a really good MC or host, mistress of ceremonies, or whoever, to keep them engaged and kind of walking them through what to do. I think that a really great thing with leveraging technology and having a hybrid event is that you can tell people that are viewing virtually, hey, while we're on this break, go to social media and tweet about your experience thus far, or share a post to Instagram or Facebook, take a picture of yourself actually participating online, or hashtag whatever the hashtag is for the event. Those are ways that you can keep that audience engaged with the event, and that they still feel like that they're participating and having a good time. So I think those are really important to think about with the planning. And then, of course, our company, New Age Communications, we love helping people make their events come possible. So I do have to plug us. We have experience with this, and we're happy to help people through it. But those are just some of the things that I've had an extensive experience helping, like coordinating volunteers for hybrid events. It looks a little bit different, but it's important that you know that just like in an in-person event, you have to have the same elements. When you're thinking about the breaks, you have to think about what's that break experience look for both audiences. So that is key to the planning.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Dominique about the run of show. And, she talked about details. I am not a details person. I'm more of like, here's what I want to do. I want this strategic objective to happen. And I think that's something that you should consider too. Like, is it purposeful? Is it mission driven, or whatever it is? But then I go and hire somebody to help me with all those little details, because I sit there and I'm like, oh my God, I don't have time to do this. So having someone that is really good at, thinking about those details and those breaks, what do you do with that downtime? Is there an opportunity to, if it's a fundraiser, is that an opportunity to tug at some heartstrings and get people to engage or donate? If it's if you're waiting between courses, what can you do to make sure that people aren't dropping off, or just going to go drink their bourbon by themselves? So I think that those are always kind of the hard but fun creative brainstorming things that people kind of forget. And I think our next question is, like, what did you wish you knew before the first hybrid event? And it is that, like, oh God, what do we do now that we have this downtime? I don't have anything planned, so I 100%, that's really great that Dominique brought that up, because I do think that's very important. You're not only thinking about what you're doing when you're on, but what are you doing when you're taking a break for the people online? Because like you said, you've been to conferences, you get up, go to the bathroom, check your phone, you're doing whatever. But the people, at home online are you could lose them. They may go start checking their email or something, and then they're gone, because I've certainly done that too, a couple times on DDBS. But it's like, need to shut the email down, need to make sure that you're focused and paying attention to what the content is for your at-home guests.
I couldn't agree more, Randy. And something you said earlier about pre-recording content videos, that is a great way to fill in those gaps if you have some pre-recorded content to keep them engaged, because you don't want them looking at a blank screen while, the MC or whomever's taking a break too. So yes, I don't know, Jennifer, if we wanted to go to the next question, or I'll also catch questions in the chat, but you just let me know how you want to
Go
direct
ahead if you want to.
Yeah.
I know we just had a question from Amy about how you incorporate fun into the events for both in person and online, and then helping with connections. So yeah, if you guys want to chat about that for a minute, and then we can talk a little bit about tools and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I know we've been talking about the Hop-In Network, and there's all kinds of, platforms that you can research based on your budgets. And, there are some that are free, just depending on, what you need to do. Obviously, with the Hop-In, you have the ability to do virtual networking, which, Liba here in our town, and I participated in a lot of these, and it is really fun. And actually kind of like it better than an in-person, because you're with one person, you have this amount of time and that's it, and then you're on to the next person, which I enjoy. So those are definitely the technological aspects. You're able to put people together. There are those breakout sessions that you can do, but you do have to, I think, use some kind of platform in order to facilitate that. And then the fun is just, I would encourage you to think about your purpose and your mission. And obviously with DDBS, we want to share that mission. So I think we had like a photo booth, like we would have like a virtual photo booth where people could, with Goofy, whatever. And it's like, here, while we're on a break, please go to our photo booth and snap a photo. And then it automatically uploads to your Instagram or something like that, which is really fun. So it could be just as simple as that, or, go to this room now because there's a performance happening while we wait for our next session, or there's a DJ playing, or it's a virtual dance party, or I just think you get as creative as you want. And if you can do it, if you can do it in person, you can certainly do it online. And I'll let Dominique talk a little bit more about some of the things that we did for DDBS.
No, I think you got a lot of them. So yes, the virtual photo booth is great, because that's also great for your social media engagement, because you'll have those photos of everybody and you can, put those out there. And, of course, people, when they see something going on, or they feel like, oh, they're missing out, that FOMO, nobody wants to have that fear of missing out. You can share that, and that can engage people to come and join you all, whether in person or online, if that's an option. And then we did giveaways, because who doesn't like giveaways? So we had a wheel, and Tawana would spin the wheel, and like a virtual guest, for spinning the wheel for you on your, and whatever it lands on is your prize. So that was a fun way to engage people. And then like the DJ is great. And if you can't afford a DJ, just have a playlist of music. The music party, we've done that, brought people on camera so that they can, kind of just making it fun and relax. So there's lots of ways to be creative. I don't think that when you think of like a hybrid event, I really don't think it's a hindrance to your creativity. I think it just allows you to be able to do more. Like you can be even more creative, because for one, the great thing about a hybrid event is people don't have to necessarily travel to you. So you're just reaching a broader audience. I've done virtual events and I'm like, well, who's the farthest away? Like, just finding little icebreakers or things that you can engage people. That makes it a lot of fun. And we too also use Hop-In platform. And I know we have probably a question later about this, but it also has a great feature that allows networking. And we love that feature. So it makes it very easy. So you can go on to the Hopin platform and they will randomly select someone for you to be matched with one-on-one. And so you'll see them and they'll see you and you can talk to each other, and there'll be a timer and you can set the timer for as long as you want. And then after that time's up, you go to the next person, and it's very, very organic networking opportunity. And that is one of the features that I love best about Hopin. And it's very affordable. So it's not one that breaks the bank. We did extensive research in trying to find the right platform for us, for our audiences. And we just love Hopin. And I will say that in a bet on the longevity of more remote events happening, I read today that LinkedIn invested in Zoom's competitor, which is Hopin, and it was an estimated value of 5.7 billion. So I think remote events are around for a while, and Hopin is a great platform to, play around with. It has a lot of features and capabilities that help to create that the engagement that you really want to create, and create those networking opportunities that you want to create, whether you be in person or virtually. It kind of makes it a little bit easier to do those things.
Yeah, and I think when you're also in person, some other fun thing, you can show what's happening on virtual to the people that are still there at that are actually in person at your event too, because sometimes when it's fun to like watch everybody. When we were doing the DJ, they're like dancing at their house. You can post those things up on your screen in person. That's also something fun. And then, yeah, anything that can be like a little engaging, like, a trivia quiz or a poll or something that's, asking about, what did you think of this last speaker? Or, I just think that the sky's the limit to keep your people engaged online, during those downtimes.
Great ideas. Awesome. I just want to add that I went to my first in-person networking event last night, the new event, the Network for Entrepreneur Women. And I had a hard time hearing everybody. And I was like, I kind of miss Hopin, where I'm just like talking to one person and I can understand what they're saying.
Right.
So anyway, but I do love that aspect. And I'm surprised there are not more networking types of things, but so far Hopin's the only one where I found where it does that automatically generating type of things. So, well, great. Well, I think we kind of covered this. What is something you wish you had known before your first hybrid event? But if you want to add to that, and we've also talked a lot about some of the tools, so maybe kind of combining those. Dominique looks like she wants to say something about that. One thing she wished she had known.
So of course, the challenge with a hybrid event is with our event, the summit, people could participate in person or virtually. So like if for instance, if you've got an in-person ticket, you could also still log on virtually. So a lot of people ended up doing that. So that even though they were counted as an in-person ticket, they might have, just not been able to make it. It was a 3-day event. So one day they might not have been able to make it. And so one of the things that we wish we had known is like who was coming in person and who wasn't, and having those exact numbers. It's really hard to gauge. And then costs were spent on food, like lunch and breakfast, that we really couldn't anticipate that, because people that had an in-person ticket could still choose to view it from their office or home if they needed to for one of the days. So it kind of helped, it kind of skewed our numbers and our planning. So if there was a way that we could figure out who's coming to eat, that would have helped a lot with our planning. But we just planned for everybody because we didn't want to be short of any food. But that would have definitely helped. So if there's anything like that, where you're expensing like giveaways or food that for the people that will be there in person, just maybe figuring out some ways to make sure that they're actually going to be coming in person. But with Hopin, we wanted them to be able to log on that way too, so that they could participate in the networking online as well, and have some type of way for them to bridge the gap between our virtual and our in-person guests, so they could still connect. So that is probably the most difficult thing, trying to gauge numbers, and wish we had, a better way to figure that out. So.
Yeah, and for our smaller events, that wasn't really an issue because, you bought a ticket to be an in-person or you bought a ticket to be online only, and it's this one thing. I can see how that would be different on a 3-day conference, giving people the option. And I myself went one day in person and watched from home the other times, and there was a lot of food and stuff left over, I noticed. So yeah, that would be a challenge. But I think that's a very unique situation, as because the hybrid events that we're doing, it's like you're going to this fundraiser or you're watching it online. That's it. There's no, you're not going to like go to the fundraiser for a minute and then drive home and watch the rest of it at home. Or I guess they could, but we wouldn't give them that option. So I think that's definitely a good point that I actually didn't think about.
And then Jennifer, and your question about tools for the hybrid events. I know we've talked a lot about hopping, but I think also what's important is just having the right team at the table. I can't stress that enough. We have a large committee that we work with, and we need every person and all their contributions. So I think that when you're planning a hybrid event, just having the right people at the table also is do not take that lightly. And then also the production team, because we had AV needs, and making sure that we had the right team in place that could definitely execute what we were desiring.
Yeah, depending on your budget, I mean, you can hire this completely out. And you can, there are companies out there that do exclusive live streaming on whatever platform that that you want to have. And there are certainly those experts. Again, that depends on budgets, and my small businesses don't really have that, so we have to figure that out ourselves. And there are a lot of great platforms that you can use. You can broadcast on Facebook Live. You can do Facebook Live within a group. But again, I found that the YouTube Live using my Ecamm Live software was kind of the best bet. And then the broadcast lives there on YouTube forever. And you can make that public later. You can pull snippets out of it to share on your social media. And like I said, over the years, I've kind of gathered all of these tools, which came in very handy because we were doing podcasts. So I had all this audio equipment that plugged into the computer. We do a lot of social media. So I have really nice cameras that also do video that I found I could plug into. It was, I just had to do all this research. I was like, oh my gosh, I already have most of this stuff. Now I need to, just find the platform or the tool that kind of brings it all together and allows me to broadcast while letting me put things on the screen, because I'm not a videographer. But I don't, the Ecamm Live was pretty inexpensive and very user friendly, and they keep improving it, more and more every time I go back to use it. So, you don't have to invest in all that equipment. You could use a cheaper webcam, I guess, but it just depends on, I guess, what the kind of quality that you want to have for your at-home viewer. And obviously, you're also not trying to disrupt what's happening at the in-person event. Obviously, I think people, if you let them know in advance that this is a hybrid, they're going to forgive, but you don't want to, I've been to some events where the camera is like right smack in the middle and you can't see the speaker, or, it's disrupting, the auction or something like that. So, thinking about your placement, how you're going to film that event and get, into viewers' homes is also, I think, something that you should consider.
So find your techie board member who has cameras.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know somebody out there that knows how to do this stuff. And then it's not, again, if that's the way your mind works, it's kind of fun to figure it out yourself. And then, I had this huge sense of accomplishment. I was like, oh my God, I figured this out. And, but if that's not your thing, yes, you need to go find somebody.
Yeah. Like Dominic, yeah, the team is so important.
Yeah, and the DDBS team is just so incredible, and I've served on the committee also. But they're, they have budgets because they want the guests to have the best experience, and so it was a full-on videography staff that was there in person. It was with, you know, fabulous audio. And I can't stress enough, like, pay attention to audio. You know, that's for me probably the most challenging thing. And you know, they had wireless mics, and I don't get to have that luxury, so I'm like corded to my computer trying to extend the USB, like, so I can snake and put the microphone next to the speaker. So if you can't hear the person, then you're not having that good experience.
Yes. And one thing I'll mention, I'm sorry, with DDBS, we of course, because Tawana Bain does things big and she likes challenges, we were broadcasting live from Louisville, Kentucky, from Philly, and from LA. So we were engaging, you know, audiences across the country, and we did have audiovisual teams on location in those satellite locations so that we could also engage with, you know, the attendees that were there. So, I mean, you can be, like I said, the sky's the limit in creativity and what you can do with technology. So it actually makes it a really fun event, but that was an extra challenge that we took on. And then it's like, you know, like Randy said, how do you make sure that everyone, you know, that's in person is fully getting the effect of what's happening virtually? So having like a screen that can project what's happening online, that really helps with the engagement as well. And then I saw a question about how far in advance. For DDBS, we started 6 months in advance for our planning for the event.
For my small fundraiser, it was about a month in advance, because we had to record film the recorded portions. I had to get somebody in to help me figure out the run of show. We had to find an MC, you know, and again, I'm handling kind of the online component of that. And then we have a committee that's handling the in-person, you know, components. And so they're working on, they're working even farther in advance, as you would for, you know, a fundraiser, to, you know, get the caterer, you know, all the things that we haven't had to do for so long. You know, that your in-person might take a little bit more time than setting up your online component. So you know, for me, it was about a month in advance, and the same for like our restaurant dinners. Maybe a little less for the restaurants dinners, because it's just a static camera and we're just showing that. But yeah, you know, take more time than you think. And you know, if you're ready to go and there's 3 more weeks, good for you. But you know, really take the time to think through some of those, like anticipate those hiccups. And then somebody else asked about gift bags. Dominique, you want to talk about that? Because that was really cool. And I have one. I'm going to go get it.
I think I have one really handy too, but we did gift bags and giveaways for our events. And so what Randy's holding up is our Pivot Champ box. That's what we did last year for our virtual event with Pivot Champs, because we thought like, okay, well, it's virtual, but we still want people to feel like they're going to a conference. And when you go to a conference, what do we love most about going to conferences? The goodies, all the goodies and stuff that we bring back. And so with our corporate partners, we were able to curate items to go into our Pivot Champ box. And so that's what each participant received last year. And then one of our corporate partners, HJI, they helped us in being able to put everything together and ship them.
So they were shipped all over the country to everyone who attended. I thought that was so cool.
All over the country. And I have the bag we had this year.
You have this year's?
I do. Well, I don't want to necessarily get up, but I don't know.
No, don't worry about it.
It's bags this year that made the shipping, I think, a little bit lighter in the weight of the things. And so we had so many of the items available for the in-person guests to retrieve when they checked in, and then everyone else virtually, they were receiving theirs in the mail a day before the conference. So things we thought about was like badges, because we had some speakers that were virtual. So we want them to feel part of everything. So they had their badge, and they had everything else that everyone received. So I do think it's always good to have that element. It can be costly, and I guess it just depends on what you're able to do. But if you're able to get to help with that, I think that that's really key. And Randy, didn't you do an event where they did some fun stuff where the virtual guests receive things at home? I
Yeah,
feel like
you can, this shipping can be a big expense depending on your wage, you know, and obviously that has to do with your budget. But we also did an event where people could pick up their swag bag in advance. We had certain times where they could come to a location and pick that up. You know, then you could send your kid or something if you didn't want to deal with that. And then the people that were at the actual event would get their swag as they walked in. But we did open that up to our virtual guests. Now, this again is events geared towards people who are local, whereas DGBS is all over the country. So you're not going to be able to set a location for someone to easily pick that up. But that is also an option, and people will do it. It's kind of like when you pick up your racing packet for like a run or something like that. We have a designated times during these days that you can pick that up. Obviously, for the virtual dinners, you can order that in advance, and it's all packaged and ready to go. And they come and pick that up along with their flight, their tasting of the spirit that we're featuring that night. But yeah, those are some other options that we did for takeaways.
I'm just going to jump in and add as well, just adding on to the tools. Because Randy, I did look up Ecamm after our conversation because I'm not on a Mac. And I thought, well, what am I going to use on my PC? And there's not really an Ecamm for PC. There is StreamYard, which I have experienced from other folks, and it seems to have a lot of similar capabilities. I have not used it yet, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
StreamYard integrates with Hopin also.
Okay. Good to know.
I know they're now owned by the same company, and I know about StreamYard because all the news stations around here use StreamYard to pull in people for interviews on screen because nobody could go in studio.
Yes, nice. And another one I'll mention as well. We have used the technology that Collins Group used there at Dane Buy Local for silent auctions. So for online auctions, which has been online probably a little longer, but 32 Auctions is a independently owned company. And so we have used them when our Buy Local fair got rained out, and we've decided we're just going to keep that virtual really probably forever, because hauling all the stuff down there and then we just get a bigger audience online. We found that we brought in the same amount of money just with a lot less trouble. So I'll add that kind of to the tool.
And then we also use One Cause for some of my nonprofit organizations that integrates with, I think, BidPal. So it sounds similar to what you're doing. We were able to set up, the Fund the Mission and all of that online, so people could even text. There's a capability of text to donate, which we found was very successful because you just say, hey, text this number, and you can flash that on the screen, during performances or whatever content you have. So One Cause is also another really good tool. Has a lot more capabilities than that. If you want to really manage your whole fundraising on that platform, you can do that too. But I think we use it just for the auction.
That makes sense, especially for fundraising. I'm looking at the chat here.
We've used Bidding Owl.
Bidding Owl is another one. Okay, awesome. And another question for Amy. Yeah, did you allow folks to register for the event at the pickup locations? So people would register when they pick up the bags. Is that what you mean, Amy?
Yeah, no, we would.
I just wondered if people who obviously were advanced registration, but I just wondered if, I'm just imagining people walking up to the swag person and saying, hey, what are you doing? And then, maybe having the option to sign up there as well.
Yeah, maybe. We've not done that because the swag location was kind of a private, entity. It wasn't, we weren't getting foot traffic, but yeah, if you're out in the public, I think that's a great idea.
And for our event, we did allow on-site registration. So we did anticipate, and have enough swag in case there were some walk-ups. And then, even for the virtual ticket holders, they could, the day of, if they saw a post on social media, or the day two, they saw a post on social media and they wanted to sign up, they could still sign up. They would just get their swag at a later time. But we did allow for registration up until each day of the event.
Well, let's see. Did I have any other questions I wanted to cover on this, or we could just open up the floor? Well, just any areas you want to see improve for future hybrid events? Like, are you like, I'm sure you're all already planning for future hybrid events, and Dominique, I can't believe y'all pulled that off in 6 months, because that is a big event. But that's awesome. So what are you thinking for the next time?
Well, for us, I think it's changed the game, because I don't see why any of our events can't be hybrid anymore. Like any dinners that, we're starting to open back up to full capacity. Theater performances are happening again. I'm producing a musical. It was, at our big outdoor venue, Iroquois Amphitheater. And I'm already trying to figure out, I'm like, should we have access to this via live stream? And is that another revenue generator? And if we're doing a dinner or a tasting at a restaurant, should we be live streaming that and not charging people, but not doing the dinners that they can pick up anymore, because now you can come to the restaurant at full capacity, but somebody out in California might want to hear about this bourbon expert talking about, this brand. And does that further the reputation of the restaurant on a more national level, because now people are used to having this type of technology more so than they did before. And we've also used Zoom for some of those dinners, like when we were completely virtual and people could not come into the restaurant, they would pick up their dinner and we'd all gather together on Zoom. So I think it's, how are all events going to be hybrid for me now? Because we can reach that larger audience, as Dominique talked about, and there might be an appetite for that. So no pun intended, but that's kind of where I'm thinking now. But again, for us, it's a lot of work to shoulder on a small firm that only has we have 3 people at our firm, and do we have the bandwidth for that? Or do we ask the client to invest in a team that can come in and do that? And is that worth it? So it's those conversations, because we want to do things that are purposeful and mission driven for our clients and organizations.
And I would agree with Randy that I believe hybrid events is just going to be part of the future. One of my other jobs, one of my many hats that I wear, I work at my church. And even for that population, we're trying to figure out events that we used to have in the past. What is that going to look like? Because we have so many people that are not comfortable with being in person yet. And so I just think it's going to be and hybrid events is going to be part of our everyday life, not just in our professional life, but it's going to creep up in all elements of our life. The way schools do meetings, though, I feel like a PTA meeting will have a hybrid element, which is great because I can't always be there in person. So I look forward to it. I think it's a great thing. And just like Randy said, it's going to help us to reach more people. One of the things that I think is going to be a game changer is if we can figure out how to have high engagement and interaction between virtual and in-person participants. Whoever figures that out, that's going to change the game. We have some ways that we try to create that experience, like with Hopin platform, with the networking, but I don't know, if that translates the same as when you actually go to a conference. And I consider myself a professional conference goer. I love going to conferences because I love the networking. And so I don't know if I don't know that it feels the same always, when I'm virtual versus in person. And if I'm in person, am I really engaging with the people virtually as much as I could? So if we can figure out how to highly engage those audiences to interact, that's really going to be game changing. And I'm excited for it because I feel like it's going to happen. Somebody's going to figure it out.
Yeah, so many things have become more mainstream, since the pandemic, and it's really jump-started all of those areas that might have happened eventually, but now it's on steroids. So we have a question from Brian, director of the Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association, and his question is about: are you, thinking about the issue of kind of undercutting your own in-person events by allowing widespread access remotely? And you can kind of see his full text there. I'm not sure if you guys have read all of that yet or thought about that. It's something that we have kind of considered. I will say that LIBA has not done, we have not done hybrid events yet. I think we probably will for some of our larger events, but for our monthly events, they've kind of been either or. We're starting back to in-person next month. But for somebody who covers such a large area, that's a very pertinent question.
I'll say that I think that as we're opening up, that people want to go in person if they can. And so that might be why there might be a decrease in the remote attendance, just because people have more options and opportunities. I think also the summertime, or as the weather's getting warmer and nicer, is very difficult. I know I was working on planning a virtual event for this month, and attendance was so low that we just decided to scrap it. And we did a similar event in November, and it was, I mean, the attendance was just as many people or more signed up for it as if we were having it in person. But it was November, it was cold outside. We were not as opened up as we are now. There was no vaccinations happening. So I think that, as the climate changes and things in the news, whatever's happening with the COVID-19 update, as those things happen, that really impacts, what people want to do, whether it be in person or remote. I wouldn't scrap doing the remote, even if the attendance is going down, because unfortunately there's another strain. What is it? COVID Delta. So there's other things that might come along that might make people more comfortable attending remotely. So you just never know. And that's really what's hard with the planning piece, because when we start planning 6 months from now, we don't know how much the world's going to be opened up. And that's really was our struggle. When we were planning for 2020, we planned as if Derby was going to happen on schedule, and then it didn't. And then we had to pivot. So you just need to always be flexible and be ready to pivot. So I think having both options is always best scenario.
Yeah, I don't, are you, Brian, are you talking about like, if you open up online, people won't come in person? Is that what you're talking about? Because I think at this point, people are going to come if they want to come, and having the online only allows more access to whatever it is that you're doing. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, we, after obviously taking a year off of a major trade show with 600 attendees over 3 days in the fall, we went virtual and had a very positive experience as far as, 4 months before, and having no idea what we were doing, to pulling off actually 4 days of programming. And we probably had about 40% of membership attendance as would travel to a physical show. But the numbers were still strong. Our publisher supporters and such were really pleased. We did a similar spring version of the event, because we always have a spring event as well. And we were down to even a 75% drop from the attendance in the fall. So now we're looking at returning in October to an in-person show, and we're trying to find the balance of how much investment we make in doing in the hybrid production, whether we pay for live streaming if we're only going to have 20 of our members sitting at home. And then additionally, if you give them that option, but then just the general attrition sets in and they decide, no, I'm not going to travel because I'll attend from home anyway. And then it's very easy, obviously, for them not to at that point. So it's very hard to justify right now, beyond wanting to just make everything all inclusive and accessible. But when you look at the whole thing of what we do for how many people at what cost, which is sort of a nonprofit mantra, it's really hard to justify a lot of investment in a big production of hybrid programming at the live show.
I understand. And until we kind of go through this reopening phase and have more data and we're able to share that information with each other, that's going to be really hard to figure out. And I think, like you said, you're going to have to weigh, is it worth the investment if we feel like we're only going to get this many people? I don't have the answer to that, unfortunately, because we're trying to figure out the same thing, with our theater productions. We seem to think that people are itching to get out and do stuff, but who knows what's going to happen even a month from now. So I think we have to plan for what we know, and then we have to be able to be flexible. A great example is like we were going to open this musical at 30% capacity and break even, and then we went on sale, and then all of a sudden it's opened to 100%, so we had to take it off sale, retool the whole house, and move forward, which is a great thing. But anything could happen, and they may shut it down again. We don't know, but we can only plan for what we know, and then we have to scramble to get it done if something changes.
Lots of wild guesses.
Yeah.
Last March.
And I'm gonna have to jump off for a 2:00 call.
Oh yeah. So any last minute questions before we lose Randy here? And we are kind of wrapping this up as well. So
I did have a quick question. If ticket prices, in person versus virtual, if you're doing a combination of both, what do you charge? Do you charge the same price?
For our restaurant stuff, no. Because the in-person experience is going to be so much more. So we would charge, like the dinner would be like $65 plus tax and gratuity, and the online would be like $15 to join that. When we were doing exclusively virtual events, yes, because you're picking up all of the stuff and you're still having that same experience. But yeah, so no. But and I haven't. I don't know what we did. I don't remember what it was. DDBS has multi-levels of pricing on how you can attend. You can attend a 1-day pass, a 3-day pass, or whatever. And they did have virtual versus in person. But our fundraiser was the same for both experiences, because you're getting the same type of content, and sometimes it's even better online. This is my 2:00 call, so I'm going to have to jump off, guys. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Randy. I appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Bye, Randy. And yes, Randy mentioned, yes, we had different price points. So virtual ticket prices were like $100 and something for the 3 days, and then like $50 for each day if you wanted to participate. And then the value of attending in person, it included all the events and transportation, because we had shuttles to get people from place to place. We had food costs, so the ticket price was a lot more. But we could translate with why that investment was more than the others. But just my final thoughts. I just thank you for this opportunity. I think the key success for your hybrid event is having the right team in place to execute, the right online platform and technology needs, and lots of planning and communication. And it always seems impossible until it's done. Nelson Mandela. That's my final thoughts. And good luck in your hybrid event.
Thank you so much, Dominique. I really appreciate it. It's been great. Any last minute thoughts or quick questions as we wrap up today? I put a plug in for our next Local Leaders Roundtable. That'll be next month, Thursday, July the 8th at 1. What's new at Amoeba section on member benefits. So learn about all the awesome things that Amoeba offers to our members. And I am so proud of my town to have Dominique and Randy both on here. You guys are part of what makes Louisville awesome, and what makes local businesses awesome too. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if anyone wants to connect. I can drop it in the chat. If I can real quick.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm happy to connect anyone to Dominique as well. Obviously, they have a ton of experience in producing these types of events as well. And I still owe Dominique an email as well, because we're kind of looping her in, hopefully on our buy local fair as well. So we're going to figure that out here. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. We'll wait till Dominique gets her LinkedIn here.